Welcome to Podcast and Business. I am Juan Carlos Giraldo from Boston, United States. Jennifer Motles is the Chief Sustainability Officer at Phillip Morris International. She's based in Switzerland. In this episode, I spoke with Jennifer about an exciting report on ESG metrics, materiality, ambitions, and impact focused on nature topics such as biodiversity and water. These sustainable strategies at Phillip Morris are set to guide the long-term work on biodiversity protection and water stewardship. Hi Jennifer, how are you?
Hi Juan Carlos, I'm good and I'm happy to be here with you today.
I'm so glad to have you today as a guest in this episode, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Jennifer, today we will discuss an exciting report from Phillip Morris International entitled Towards a Net Positive Impact on Nature, Phillip Morris International Ambition on Biodiversity and Water that you guys published in December 2022. So I would like to start this conversation by asking you, we know that Phillip Morris managed the environmental impact derived from its business operations through two main strategies. One of them is tackling climate change and preserving nature. So my question is, why are these two strategies so critical in the company?
I think that to explain these two strategies, maybe I should contextualize our overall approach to sustainability. Would that be okay?
Sure.
Okay. For those who don't know, PMI or Phillip Morris International is traditionally known as a tobacco company, and our main and only product used to be the cigarette. In 2015, we decided to undergo a radical transformation that is based on changing and phasing out cigarettes completely, meaning that in the future, the success of our company is no longer going to be based on making or selling cigarettes anymore. And so as we started going through this journey of transformation, it's going to be almost 10 years in 2025. We're going to have 10 years of going through transformation. We started redefining what success is. So in changing our portfolio and moving to a place where we can offer better products to our consumers, we also grew the awareness of understanding what is the impact that our company has on the environment and society. And this is basically like any multinational that has a huge footprint in all over the world. Naturally, we will have inevitable impacts on the environment and on society. And so building that awareness and that understanding is really the first step to defining what can we do. What can we do to mitigate or minimize those negative externalities and hopefully move into a place like this report that you were quoting has a net positive impact. And so when you ask me about these two strategies, tackle climate change and preserve nature, where is it coming from? So I think that pretty much since the Paris Climate Agreement and when the awareness became more universal about the climate crisis that we're all living and the terrible effects of climate change, there was a consensus that companies, individuals, governments needed to take action to reduce emissions and make sure that the world does not continue heating up in a pace that is going to make us all disappear. When you think about tackling climate change, often you will think about that. You will think about what can we do to reduce fossil fuel consumption, switch to renewable energy, offset whatever is unavoidable. But then as a company, as we become more sophisticated, and also I think, frankly, as society, we understand that in order to really tackle climate change, it is not just about reducing emissions. That is just one half of it. Reducing greenhouse gas emissions is a very important part of ensuring that we can all meet the expectations of the Paris Climate Agreement. But the other half is to protect natural ecosystems, because it's these natural ecosystems, it is the biodiversity that exists, which is helping us preserve the planet in the way that we want it. And so for the longest time, since PMI was investing in sustainability and tackling climate change, and in 2021 we actually published a low carbon transition plan to talk about our decarbonization, we realized that the other half of that was, well, what is it that we're doing to protect the natural ecosystems that we're touching? Where is it that we're operating? these are the two strategies that you were asking about. They are sister strategies. They go hand in hand. You cannot really tackle or address the effects of climate change by only reducing your emissions. You also need to make sure that you're protecting and preserving natural ecosystems.
Oh, certainly. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for your answer. Natural capital is so important, and Philip Morris depends a lot on this capital. Jennifer, you as a Chief Sustainable Officer at Philip Morris, you know that materiality assessment is essential to see what kind of ESG or sustainable issues we have in our companies. In the report, the materiality assessment identify and prioritize ESG topics, that the company should focus on it. Could you share with the audience what these topics are? I know that two of them are health one side and climate change in another, but there are two very important issues that the company is focused on it. Would you mind to elaborate a little bit on this, please?
Sure. And thank you so much really for recognizing that tackling climate change and preserving nature are not the only things that we're doing. They are certainly a priority, not the only one. So this report that you're referring to is a standalone report that we produce to do a deeper dive into a topic that is very important to us, that we believe merit a little bit of attention, so that we could be a little bit more granular to explain what is the trajectory of the company, to explain what is it that we're tackling. But naturally, this is not the completion, or this is not the totality of our ESG or non-financial disclosure. So we produce on a yearly basis an integrated report. And for those who are listening, an integrated report is following the International Integrated Reporting Framework, and it's a document that integrates financial and non-financial performance. And in the effort of doing that, it communicates to stakeholders, internal and external stakeholders, how does value creation look like? Understanding not just financial capital, but other forms of capital: natural capital, human capital, social capital, intellectual capital, manufactured capital. Because when a company understands that there are other forms of capital, your definition of success and your value creation model changes. And so
exactly.
This is the place where we're heading to. And so this report is reporting progress on our sustainability strategy, and our sustainability strategy is based on a materiality assessment, like you were mentioning. We also have a materiality report that we share with our stakeholders for transparency purposes, so that everybody can understand how do we define our ESG priorities. Because when you think about ESG, the list is so long. And so I think that...
Oh, the list is enormous.
Enormous, right? You can have a list that is so long, you can spend your entire life just trying to tackle ESG issues. And so I think that part of the maturity and the strategic approach of an organization is having the understanding that not all ESG issues are created equal. Depending on the nature of your company, depending on the footprint of your company, depending on the products or services that you offer, what are those issues that are most material, where you can have the biggest impact? And so our materiality assessment, what it does is that it follows the principles of double materiality. So for those who are not aware about what is double materiality, it's an exercise that looks at inward and outward impacts, meaning how are ESG issues, like for example climate change, affecting our business continuity? What is the inward impact that climate change can have on our business? And outward impacts, how is it that the existence of our business is impacting environmental or social issues? And by assessing these two things, by doing an impact assessment that goes inward and also outward, we can in a more sophisticated way calibrate which are those issues that are priority for us, but also where we believe we can have the greatest impact. And so naturally, water and biodiversity are important ones, which is the report that you're referring to, but the most important issue and the biggest impact that we can have is by addressing the health impact of our product, which is cigarettes. And the best way that we can do this, or the only way in which we can do this, is by defining a strategy that works towards phasing them out completely, so that we no longer offer to our customers or consumers nicotine via smoking, but actually we can offer nicotine-containing products that are significantly less harmful than continued smoking.
That's great. You know, speaking about impact, when I read the report, I like the topic of sustainable strategy because, according to this report, the sustainable strategy of Philip Morris International has distinct forms of social and environmental impacts. One is product impact and another is operational impact. Can you elaborate a little bit these couple impacts, how you guys define these two main points?
Thank you so much for that question, because indeed that is a very distinct aspect of PMI's approach to sustainability. And what does it mean? I think that we are acutely aware that certain impacts, certain environmental and social impacts that our company has derive from our operations or how we produce. So by having factories, by having a big supply chain, all the operational aspects of running a business leave an environmental and social footprint behind. So these kind of impacts are associated to our operations. A different kind of environmental and social impacts are related to our products, and that is more unique to PMI itself and more connected to our value proposition. The reason why we create this distinction also is because when you think about sustainability, a way to think about it is that in many ways, sustainability can be understood as a way to mitigate risk and be compliant, to ensure operational efficiency and good use of resources. And that would be allocated a lot to how is it that we operate, how is it that we run the business. But then another part, which is perhaps where the competitive advantage of our business comes from, is by understanding sustainability as an opportunity for innovation and growth. And so if you think again about ESG issues that are material, and you think about a company that is aiming to reduce its negative externalities or internalize its negative externalities, starting by the impacts of the product, it is that precisely that innovation and that technology and that R&D and that ingenuity that has led us to realize that we can have a better business and also continue being successful. And so for me, creating that distinction highlights also what is our value proposition, how sustainability is not just this add-on to our corporate strategy, but really the same. Our transformation strategy, our business strategy, our corporate strategy, our sustainability strategy, they're all the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Jennifer, something that I really like about this report that I would like to highlight that this report is related and based in 5 SDGs, the 15, the 6, 13, the 12, and 14. And all of them are interconnected, by the way. So let's talk briefly about the Philip Morris International Biodiversity and Water ambitions. Last week, or a couple of weeks ago, we have the World Water Day. This is a critical ambition because the water lately, I think, is just not just water anymore. It's a commodity, and it's so important in area operations. How Philip Morris pretend to achieve these critical ambitions about biodiversity and the water one?
Right. So I think that when it comes to biodiversity and water, it's not that we didn't have strategies per se before. We have been working perhaps in a more indirect way, but nonetheless still tackling or addressing issues related to biodiversity or biodiversity protection and preservation, and also water consumption. Precisely because of what you're saying, I think that some of the impacts of climate change are extreme weather conditions, including drought, including flooding. And in doing that, naturally, water, as you said, becomes scarce, and making sure that we're using water in a way that is not only efficient from a business perspective, but also conscious that in the places we're operating, water is also being used by the societies and the people that are living in the surrounding areas. So the more that we can do to have water stewardship practices that can actually protect that and preserve water in the best possible way, the better it is for our business, but also the better that it is for society. I think that what changed, and the reason why the report came out last year in December, is because we were waiting, like many others, for COP15. Mm-hmm. You remember that COP15 was postponed a few times because of COVID, mm-hmm. and unfortunately it wasn't. They were not able to gather around and conclude what was something that for all those working in sustainability we were really expecting, that was the framework, the framework convention that adopts targets for tackling or addressing and preserving natural ecosystems, including water, including biodiversity. So the reason why we didn't have targets or strategies because we were waiting to align and make sure that what we are doing as a company really contributes to these wider goals of society, not just the SDGs, but what the COP, the Conference of the Parties in Biodiversity in Montreal, were discussing. And so in that regard, what I can say is that we already had goals related to deforestation that we had achieved in terms of zero gross deforestation of primary and protected forest associated with our tobacco supply chain. We achieved that already and we have been maintaining it. In 2022, we had the goal of also achieving virtually zero waste in our landfill that is also connected to, as you know, biodiversity. And then moving forward to 2025, our intention is to have zero net deforestation of managed natural forest and no conversion of natural ecosystems in our tobacco supply chain. And related to that, we have other goals and targets connected to forest and deforestation. By 2030, and this was intentional, we introduced the goals in 2022, so we want to have a span of 10 years because we understand that a lot of the impacts that we're seeking are impacts that are going to manifest in the long term, like many things in sustainability. So we're seeking no net loss. So to protect nature by achieving no net loss on ecosystems connected to PMI's value chain. And with the intention of being net positive by 2050, so contributing towards a net positive impact on nature. And if you allow me, something that I want to say that is really important to us is that as we understand better the impact of the initiatives that we're undertaking, we start becoming more comprehensive when putting initiatives or programs in place that not only tackle one issue of sustainability, but more than one. So, for example, when you think about our decarbonization strategy, part of our decarbonization strategy is about reducing fossil fuel consumption, it's about switching to renewable energy, but it's also about, instead of offsetting what is unavoidable, moving into an insetting format. Insetting meaning that we are creating carbon credits within our own value chain. And in doing that, we're actually financing and creating nature-based solutions. And why is it that...
That's great.
Thank you.
I love nature-based solutions.
And why is it that I'm bringing that up? It's because these nature-based solutions that are contributing to offset those unavoidable emissions, they are also contributing to preventing or reducing or abolishing completely deforestation in our value chain and also contributing to the preservation of natural ecosystems. And when you think about companies and the role that they can play in advancing sustainability, certainly my goal, but I'm sure other chief sustainability officers' goal, is to create initiatives that are so comprehensive that holistically they can not only tackle one issue, but they can tackle other issues. Because we know that in sustainability, all these ESG issues, they're actually interconnected. So if you're creating nature-based solutions to create insetting initiatives, you're also protecting biodiversity. You're also protecting the local communities that live in those areas. You're also protecting water. You're also protecting natural resources. And for me, that is really the beauty of becoming better and more knowledgeable in the work that we're doing so that we really can have a greater and deeper impact.
You know, Jennifer, speaking about these nature-based solutions, I'm taking a course at Yale School of Management, and it's about the corporate climate change risk. And one of the points, that was discussed is that the companies, should consider creating nature-based solutions and their sustainability strategies to help to preserve and protect biodiversity, as you mentioned.
Absolutely.
Jennifer, is there anything that you would like to add to this conversation?
Thank you. Well, yes, maybe I can do a small announcement. We are finalizing our integrated report 2022. So our integrated report that communicates the performance of our company for the year prior. So in a few days, actually, we're going to be publishing it. I'm very excited because we will be communicating progress in all these initiatives and how is it that our company is making progress to drive positive change. So I hope that you can all read it and you can give me feedback so that we can continue improving.
Jennifer, before wrapping up, you as a Chief Sustainable Officer at Phillip Morris International, in your opinion, what is the best way to communicate sustainability in general?
I think that there needs to be an acknowledgement that there's no one silver bullet, there's no like one size, you produce a report and then you forget about it and people can read it, because more and more the audience that has interest in sustainability is diversifying and they're seeking different kind of information. So the finance community is seeking data that is reliable, that is robust, that is comparable. This is a drier information, if you may, very fact-based. They're seeking data that they can understand what is it that you're doing. But then you have other stakeholders that are looking for impact-driven information. Certainly our employees are a big and very important stakeholder who is seeking to understand what is the role of human capital in driving success, and the way that we communicate that is drastically different. So I think that it is about being aware of who is your audience, who you're communicating to, and having the ability to be multifaceted in the way that you convey the information.
Jennifer, I would like to say thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure, and what an honor to be in your podcast. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, thank you so much. I am Juan Carlos Giraldo from Boston, United States. Thank you so much, everyone.